Anglophone, 2 fois président, passer le pouvoir à un anglophone. Si on était bien au pays, est-ce qu'on allait prendre la route de l'aventure? Ah, mais c'est le président. Un pauvre qui vote pour celui qui l'a rendu pauvre. Si on était bien au pays, est-ce qu'on allait prendre la route de l'étranger? Ah, mais c'est le président. Au Sénat, il y a un Dieu. Wonderful. À la présidence, il y a un Dieu. Dans tout le gouvernement, il n'y a que des vieux.
Good day, the beautiful people of the Cameroons, friends and enemies. Once more, this is a British Cameroon National Party political broadcast. And once more, my name is Maitre Mola Alex Ndiveli Singer. For over 8 years, we have been having some conflict in the northwest and southwest of Cameroon's British Cameroon. And if you ask an average person in British Cameroons, they will say they are fighting for Anglo-Saxon culture, the British values. I thought about this and I said, let my political broadcast talk about those values today. Personally, I understand the values and taking into consideration what have been happening in British Cameroons. So I want to put these values in front of you and I want to know, do you really know the values? Do you know what you're fighting for? If somebody should call you an interview and say, what's the Anglo-Saxon culture? What are those values? Are you going to be able to tell that person? Think about this before I start talking about those values. It's because they are very, very important. Because you cannot be fighting for something that you don't understand the thing. And to me, darkness cannot replace darkness. So I want to use this party political broadcast and see how many of you Anglophones, British Cameroonians, how many of you know that value today? The British values, the Anglo-Saxon culture, we call it their fundamental values. Fundamental. Those are those values. And today, I'll give you 4 of those fundamental values and see if you really have that values, if you know what you're fighting for. Or sometimes I say, people are fighting about their tradition, their culture. The thing is Anglo-Saxon culture. Some of you might be annoyed. But what I'm saying, this right of talking, that's part of that values. So the first value that I want to talk about is individual liberty. Individual liberty. And let me make this clear to everybody, because some people might take excuse, oh, we are fighting war. Oh, in war, this value doesn't apply. It applies even in wartime. That is why we have what they call military manual and we have war crimes, because those values, even if you're fighting war, you have to respect those values. Those are Anglo-Saxon values, British values. So if you have been going around murdering people, take note, in war, you can murder somebody. You can murder somebody. If somebody have surrendered, it's a military, and you still kill the person, it's murder, it's not war. That's why you have war prisoners. So I'm making it clear before I go into these values. Even if there is war, these values can still apply because a war does not concern civilians. If you have mutilated somebody's body, it is a war crime. Cruel treatment, you beat people, kidnap people for ransom. If you take somebody for hostage or all those things, they are war crimes. So even in war, the Anglo-Saxon value still applies. The law is no respect of persons, which means that you have to treat everyone in the same way. Ignorance of the law is no defense, which means people cannot defend their action by claiming that they did not know the law. So you cannot do something to somebody and say, I did not know the law. You don't need to be a lawyer to know the law. You don't need to go to school to know the law. So that's why, before I talk about all these values, I want to tell you that if you have committed all these atrocities, then you are not Anglo-Saxon. Then you don't know that values. It doesn't matter whether it's in wartime or in peacetime, because if you're a paramilitary rather, or you're an army, you're fighting government armies, you have to distinguish between civilians and government military. So you don't have to put them, they are not part of your war. So I don't know, all those who are fighting wars today, how many of you taught the British, not British manual, the military manual to your soldiers? How many of you? I doubt it. Before you indulge in war, how many of you elaborated to your military or paramilitary the war crimes? None of you. So you see, that's why we have disaster. And that's why I said it is very important, before you do anything in life, you have to look before you leap. Okay, let's go now for the first Anglo-Saxon culture or British value. That's individual liberty. I know a lot of people look at rights, equality, human rights. All those things are individual rights. They are not collective rights. Like if I say I have a right for freedom of expression, I have a right to associate with who I want. It's not a collective right. It's individual right. If I don't like to associate with you, I have a right to say, no, that's my right. And the right of equality. So these things are important. Individual right, that's individual liberty. It's your personal right. If you force somebody to join you to do something, it means you're breaching that British values. It is your right. It is your choice. It's up to you to give your consent. Nobody can force you under duress or undue influence. So that's very important. Individual liberty. That's an Anglo-Saxon culture. So that's the first one. So how many of you know that? How many of you respect that? I want to know. It's very important because we cannot sit and be fighting for something that we cannot practice. If you don't allow, you don't even need to allow. If that individual liberty is not there, it means you're fighting your tradition, your country tradition. You know, means you fight now Anglo-Saxon culture. That individual right, it doesn't matter, it must be there. So you must distinguish. Example, I might be using my Bakwe culture or Balinyonga culture. I think that is Anglo-Saxon culture. That's not Anglo-Saxon culture. That's our indigenous culture. The next British value, Anglo-Saxon value, is respect and tolerance. Your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins. So if you want to swing your fist, you have to know your own right ends where my nose begins. So you must learn to embrace diversity, whether you like it or not. I spent my childhood, I was growing up, I went to nursery school, primary school, Lycée Moliko in Boya. I embraced diversity. I never used to look at people from what tribe you come from or whatever. That's why I can mingle with any person anywhere all over the world. Then I went to Ngwakele again to Sipisibali. So I embrace diversity. When I come and speak on this platform, on this political broadcast, I'm not talking about which tribe you come from. If I want to talk about health policy, economic policy, police, judiciary, and other things, it has got nothing to do with your tribe. So sometimes I see people, they are afraid. When I talk, oh, maybe the mother come from this side, the father come from this side. So what has my value got to do with where my mom or my dad come from? Those values that I'm naming, like the first one, individual liberty, it has got nothing to do with a tribe. Respect and tolerance, the second one, it has got nothing to do with the tribe. Respect and tolerance could also be like the importance of religion, your tradition. When I was growing up, we used to have dance competition. People from different tribes, they used to dance, all those tribes. You have to respect people's religion and tradition. That's one of the British values. So British value is not country talk. So I'm telling you people, have you been following this value? Individual liberty, respect and tolerance. The third British value, Anglo-Saxon culture, is the rule of law. How the law protects you and others. So that's why I was saying the rule of law. It doesn't matter whether you're fighting your war or no war, or there's conflict or not. You have to follow the rule of law. It is not a mistake that there are war crimes. If you go and burn down a public building or private building, it's a war crime. If civilians, they are passing somewhere, you have to give them what they call in the UN convention, safe passage. Your war have got nothing to do with them. When you go and harass people and ask them to give you money, you're harassing, there is war crime. They don't owe you anything. If you want to fight for Anglo-Saxon culture, those values, you have to do it yourself. I have been doing it for more than 35 years. I've never asked people to give me money. I used to walk different places in Cameroon, meet different people, pay my own transport from my pocket. By then, I was a young boy. I was a teenager. So you have to respect the rule of law. So do you follow an Anglo-Saxon culture? That's what I'm saying. You have to protect civilians. You don't have to harass them. You have to protect the sick. You have to protect war prisoners. So that's the Anglo-Saxon culture. When we talk about a value, if we say La République du Cameroon is doing something that we hate, so if we behave like them, we are no different. It doesn't matter whether it's in wartime or it's in peacetime. The last of that culture, which is the fourth, Anglo-Saxon culture, British value is what? Democracy. In the UK, democracy is a culture that was built upon freedom and equality. Freedom and equality. Where everyone is aware of their rights and responsibility. In the Cameroons, I see even top government officials, they don't know the law. They talk about democracy. They think democracy is just about elections. Democracy is not just about election. if you have one party in power, CNU rebranded CPDM for more than 60 years, that's not democracy. Even if you were elected, it's not democracy. Democracy is not just election. When you read the Constitution of La République du Cameroon, this Article 8, sub 3 says, the head of state shall ensure internal and external security. Does he do that? No. He doesn't maintain law and order. He doesn't enforce law. He doesn't use taxpayers' money to provide economic and social assistance. So that's not democracy. Democracy is more than just elections. You see, that's not an Anglo-Saxon culture. We don't have democracy in Cameroon. If you have absolute majority in parliament, like tomorrow in the UK, we'll be expecting by 10 o'clock this evening, we'll know if we have a new prime minister. And they're expecting Stekam and the person who is going to be the new prime minister, as all opinion polls are showing, they're expecting that he will have absolute majority. When you have absolute majority, there is no effective opposition. That's why it's not good for a political party to have absolute majority in parliament, because opposition is necessary to scrutinize and to hold the government to account. So people in Cameroon, what we have democracy in theory. That's why with all these values that I'm talking about, individual liberty, respect and tolerance, rule of law, democracy, there's only one way we can bring that democracy. And it must start from somewhere. And that's our policy that we have been talking of, British Cameroon National Party. We must rally. We have to have a 10-year plan. Rally people, mobilize ourselves, and make sure during this 10-year plan, we take most of the seats in parliament in Northwest and Southwest British Cameroon. Once as we take that seat, we don't need to go and beg United Nations. We don't need to go and beg the European Union. We don't need to go and beg people for diplomacy to help us. I will talk about diplomacy in another program very soon, but it will concern Keir Starmer if he's the new prime minister. I know him personally more than 20 years ago. I can do diplomacy with people I know them. But sometimes it's dangerous. You go and do diplomacy with people. Example, when people were fighting for apartheid in South Africa, imagine you going to meet Margaret Thatcher, the former UK Prime Minister, that you want diplomacy to help for South Africa. They were the one fueling, sponsoring apartheid in South Africa. So you have to choose the people you go and do diplomacy with them. I wouldn't go and do diplomacy with the UN. The UN is made up of people who colonize us, enslave us, or whatsoever. You choose your partner very careful. I wouldn't do diplomacy even with the Americans. But I would do diplomacy with the upcoming Prime Minister, Stekam, because I know him. I would do diplomacy with Marine Le Pen because her policy is for what? France, for French people. So I would tell Marine Le Pen, Africa for African people. So you have to choose the type of person you do diplomacy with. You don't go and see the people who are propping the regimes in French Africa and say you want to do diplomacy with them, because they are already getting what they are getting from the poodles, the puppets in French African country that they call themselves head of state. So my brothers and sisters, if this is helpful for you, I know sometimes we are not used to when somebody comes out and point these things, some of us will feel guilty. But the best thing in life, if you don't know something, learn. If you don't know, learn. If you're ignorant, the door is always open to learn. But when you're arrogant, you're arrogant. You think Metro Alexis Singer is coming to insult me. He thinks that he's the only one who knows British value. I am not the one who made up these values. It is the British values. You can Google it anywhere. You can look for any book anywhere. You can read it. So when you say you are fighting an Anglo-Saxon culture, make sure you know that culture. Make sure you know it. Because to me, what we are doing in British Cameroons, Northwest and Southwest region, that is not an Anglo-Saxon culture. It's not. I've watched it for 8 years. Sometimes on my YouTube, go there and watch videos that I made more than 8 years ago. Listen to the things that I used to say more than 8 years ago and look at what is happening now. Some people come today, they say, oh, people in Southwest, they are against Northwest or what. No. Especially, I will tell you, not everybody is a fighter. Not everybody is an activist. People are different. I made this clear in the beginning of this, as we call it, struggle. I told you that my FACO people, they won't join it. It's not new. I made it clear. Not everybody fights. I've been an activist all through my life, ever since I was a boy. Do I force other people to join me? No. Activism doesn't mean everybody should be there. One person can be an activist. You can go and stand. I can go and stand in front of the Prime Minister, number 10 Downing Street, and protest alone. That's still a protest. I can stand on social media and talk. That's still a protest. Even if you have an election, the turnout is 50%. You are very happy. So you cannot have everybody to join you to do something. It doesn't work that way. If you're a real activist, you don't care what other people do, insofar as they don't attack you. As I say, our rights are individual rights. We even have those rights in La République Constitution. It's just that people don't know. Article 65, the preamble is part and parcel of the Constitution. The preamble says, everybody have got the right to say what they think and nobody should forbid them. It goes as far as saying that everybody have a right to associate with whoever they want and nobody can force them. If you don't want to associate with somebody, it is your right. All those things are there in the Constitution of La République du Cameroun. Unfortunately, most people don't read because sometimes I see ministers, they come and use words that are against the laws, even the laws of Cameroon. Terrorize the terrorists. Use amber witchcraft to fight amber. Witchcraft is a criminal offense in Cameroon. Is it Minister Tanganji will come and say political parties should not associate when it is their constitutional right. So these are Anglo-Saxon culture. Some of them are inside their constitution. Universal Declaration of Human Rights is an Anglo-Saxon thing. So if we read these things, we can always remind the government of La République du Cameroun that they are breaking their own laws. It's good to read. It's good to understand certain things. So ladies and gentlemen, once more, this has been a party political broadcast by myself, Maître Mola Alex Nivelisinger, the leader of British Cameroon National Party. Watch out for my next video. If there is a new Prime Minister, if they announce it in UK at 10 o'clock today, then you have a video for me. I'll tell you what British Cameroon National Party will be doing next to make sure that we have a parliament in former British Cameroon, to make sure that our institutions are restored. British Cameroon National Party will do that. Our party will do that personally in UK if Labour comes to power tomorrow, because most of those people, I know them personally for more than 20 years. So it's good to do diplomacy with people that you know. So if Labour comes to power by tomorrow, it's good news for British Cameroonians because I don't need to travel far to be talking to these people. So have a great day and God bless you all. Thank you.
Pendant 25 ans, 20 ans tirés de tap, 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 5 ans. Vous vous partagez. échappé. Et après, quand ils ont volé, vous appelez les paliers.
C'est toi qui l'as
échappé. Qui les avait nommés d'abord dans ce poste-là? C'est toi qui les avais nommés, papa.